ladies and gentlemen, is about leading in an age of uncertainty, skill, strategy, and the CEO mindset of tomorrow. This brings together two distinguished academic leaders who sit at the forefront of shaping global and Indian leadership talent. Please join me in welcoming Sergey Guriev, the Dean of London Business School, an internationally respected economist and thought leader on global markets, governance, and institutional resilience. In fact, he is going to be in conversation with Raj Singh, Vice Chancellor of Bennett University, an institution that is, of course, at the forefront of preparing India's next-gen industry-ready leaders. May I please now request Mr. Raj to kindly come up on the stage. Mr. Singh, if you could please come up on stage and kindly carry forward this discussion. The stage is all yours, Mr. Singh.
It's such a pleasure to talk to you, Sergey, this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Raj. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a great pleasure and honor.
Good afternoon, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, the 10th Dean of London Business School, Professor Sergey Guriev, a highly respected academic, an economist, a thinker, a commentator. He is a public intellect and policy voice across the world. Professor, I glanced through your work, and whatever I could understand, I've tried to summarize, and I hope I represent what you have done. If I look at your work and the intellectual contributions, it shows how modern authoritarian power works and sometimes distorts economies, and why political freedom and economic prosperity are deeply intertwined. You're undoubtedly the most suitable person to talk on the topic this afternoon. Last almost 1 year, we have seen some of the most engaging geopolitical discussions. They've been as captivating as the Bollywood thrillers in Indian context. They've been as prosaic as they've been poetic. There's so much to talk on what has happened and how it sets a direction for the future. But let me start with a few questions which I have listed. And the first one will talk about the decision making. In the age defined by geopolitical shocks, AI disruptions, and fragile supply chains, how should leaders cultivate epistemic humility without appearing indecisive?
Yes, thank you very much, Raj. And once again, thank you, the organizers of the Global Business Summit, for inviting me. For LBS, India is the most important country in the world. Actually, we are a global business school, and we make sure that among 6 students in a study group, we have at least 5 nationalities. So we cannot have any more than 15 or 20% of any nationality in the study group, in the MBA program, in any program. And India is actually the biggest nationality at LBS, driving our success. And for us, having a great contribution to Indian business success, to the business community, which is driving this country forward, is an important part of what we are doing. As a dean, I report to a governing body, the board, and I have 2 Indian board members, Mr. Kumar Birla, who is our alumnus, and another alumnus, Raj Rao, who is a president and chief operating officer of Global Infrastructure Partners and member of Executive Committee of BlackRock. So for me, coming here is very, very important. Answering your question, Raj, is difficult because indeed we have this decade of disruption and century of change. So change is indeed something that leaders need to embrace. At the same time, you need to provide a long-term vision. And this is the most important trade-off every leader faces. Without dictating your vision on everybody, because if you dictate your vision, you also lose the incentives and empowerment of your colleagues, of your team, to contribute to the innovation and agility. So how can you actually encourage both agility and innovation on one side, which is needed because, as you rightly said, last year we saw so much change, so much uncertainty. As an economist, I can tell you that we know how to measure uncertainty, and so last year was unprecedented uncertainty. We've never seen that much uncertainty in global economy and US economy for that matter. And at the same time, you combine agility and innovation with a long-term vision and guidance. And the only way to do that for any leader is to be honest with your colleagues and explain to them, this is what we are, this is what we are not going to change, whatever happens, and this is what we can change, how we innovate. And for example, when I think about my own organization, London Business School, I'm saying, we are a global business school, we'll always be a global business school. We are an academic rigor excellence institution. Whatever we do, we want to produce new ideas, new research, thought leadership at a very high global frontier. We are also close to real business, and this is what we are, and this is what we are not going to change. But how we teach, what we teach, where we teach is something that we are happy to innovate, because the world is changing and we need to change with this. So being very clear on what is the long-term vision, what is the DNA of the organization, and what needs to be innovated, changed constantly. I think this clarity and transparency is very important.
You more or less answered my next question, which was about the central command and control versus decentralized intelligence of the people being used. As a follow-up, may I ask you, can there be some institutional mechanisms wherein you can update the beliefs quickly without compromising with the strategic coherence?
Yes, so on centralization, decentralization, and updating the beliefs, I think one other thing is the world is not only uncertain, but also complex, something that you referred to, geopolitical shifts, trade wars, accelerating climate change, AI disruption. So the world is not just moving fast, it's also complex. No single individual can solve all the problems and provide all the answers. So you must seek feedback. You must make sure that your colleagues, who are sometimes better informed than you are, at least on some issues, feel that you are listening to them, that their feedback will be taken on board. And this is where command and control versus decentralization and updating your belief happens. You have to seek the feedback proactively. And this is, I'm sure people in this room would sympathize with that. That's actually not easy, especially when feedback is critical. Sometimes CEOs are saying, I don't want to hear about problems, bring me constructive criticism. If you bring me a problem, bring me a solution as well. But the problem there is, if problem emerges in one part of organization, solution may actually be produced in another part or even outside the organization. And it is role of the CEO to bring those things together and not say, if you're bringing me a problem without a solution, I don't want to listen to you. And that, of course, is psychologically very hard, because you get a lot of negative information. We have a problem here, we have a problem there. It's your job to think how to orchestrate the different parts of organization to provide the solution. And you get a lot of critical information, negative information, which is hard, but this is what the job of CEO is. You need to encourage and actively seek negative feedback. You need to encourage people who bring you problems to do that as soon as possible. And this is, you mentioned my work on authoritarian leaders. Authoritarian leaders usually don't seek negative feedback, and this is very dangerous for organizational success. So I think actively seeking critical feedback, actively signaling the problems, encouraging people who signal the problems is something that you really should do.
So more consultative kind of decision-making is
Absolutely.
what you recommend, where you can harness the talent of every team member.
Yeah.
Beyond analytical and technical expertise of the CEO or the leader, what are the inner qualities you would like to define for the CEOs of tomorrow?
Right. I think this is also the time where trust matters so much. I talked about long-term vision and agility, and the world is changing so fast that it's very easy to lose track of the long-term guiding star, if you like. And to instill trust, you need not just to declare what the culture of the company is and what your guiding star is, but to practice it on day-to-day basis. So the trust comes not from what you say, but from what you do. And if you do one thing and say another thing, you undermine trust. And I think this consistency is very, very important. The other thing is courage to make decisions. Now, we also live not just in the world of complexity and uncertainty, we also live in the world of social media and radical transparency. So you make a mistake, goes viral, you lose your job. Especially as university leaders, we know that. Being a university president or vice chancellor today is very hard. It's actually very hard for headhunters to find new university presidents. Nobody wants to be a university president these days. A lot of university presidents are losing their jobs. Columbia University is now through 4th president in 3 years or 2 years. So why? Because social media disseminate information about mistakes very quickly. So a lot of leaders think, I should be slow and cautious. I should not make bold decisions, because if I make a mistake, I lose my job. And of course, it's wrong, because the world needs bold decisions. Your organization needs decisions because the world is changing. So what you need to do, you need to make decisions, but you also need to explain to your colleagues why you're making this step. Saying, this may be a wrong decision exposed. Ex ante, this is the logic, this is the argument, this is the evidence I've collected to make this bold step. It's a risky step, but I'm making it because the organization needs to make a decision, needs to change. And once you are transparent about this, and once you have the trust of your colleagues that you're doing that not because of your ego, not because of selfish reasons, but because you want to benefit the organization and move it further in pursuing its mission, then you can be forgiven even if the decision is a mistake after the fact. So I think this courage to be transparent about being able to make decisions which are risky, I think it's very, very important part of the CEO's mindset today in the world of uncertainty and transparency.
Thank you. It's a great answer, I believe. This takes me to my next question, which is somewhat related. We are passing through the periods of uncertainty which generate collective anxiety among the people in organization. How should leaders communicate during volatile times like the ones we are facing today in terms of distinguishing transparent reassurance and false optimism? And how can the leaders avoid becoming either alarmist or complacent?
That's a great question. And for example, my colleague said, Sergey, when you say that this is an existential threat to our organization, don't use the word existential, because it's false alarmism. Even if the threat is very important, say substantial threat. And also tell us how you're going to tackle it, because the world is the world of shocks. Some of those shocks are very difficult. Now, I should tell you, LBS is doing well. We'll be very high in the rankings published on Monday. It's very likely that we'll be in top 5. I'm not allowed to say in which position in the world. We are number 1 in executive education in the world. But still, we are facing a lot of headwinds. And we have to be very honest about those headwinds. And the way to be honest is to collect whatever evidence you can collect. Some of this evidence is quantitative, some of this evidence is subjective. So we need to make a leap of faith. We are at the frontier, so the things we are doing has not been done before. So by definition, there is no market analysis that can inform me when I want to try out this way of teaching with AI or teaching this program on AI. This is innovation which is groundbreaking, so there is no past evidence to back it up. But whatever evidence you can collect and honestly discuss, you have to be honest about this. At the same time, about optimism. When you talk to your colleagues in the organization, at the very top level, the decisions you are making is not, these decisions cannot make everybody happy, right? Because eventually it's about allocating resources across priorities. This colleague believes that their division is most important. The other colleague believes their division is more important. And you need to allocate resources across priorities. And this is what CEOs are paid for. And once you make this decision under scarce resource constraint, you will make somebody less happy. And this is the nature of CEO's job. And this is what we communicate to colleagues, saying, look, when we walk out of this room, unfortunately, some of you will be less happy than you expected. And once you're honest about this, once you identify trade-offs and tensions, I think this transparency helps you to make those difficult decisions.
Great. I think it's all the more difficult in academia, particularly to convince people,
Yeah.
where everyone has very, very strong opinions at times. In 90s, we saw when we moved from GATT to WTO and more towards globalization. But the happenings of last 1 year indicate that we're moving away from globalization to more bilateralism, if I may use the word. How should CEOs design strategies when the rules of the game themselves are changing? Sanctions, political risk, regulatory shifts, technological discontinuities. How to trade off between optionality and efficiency as a CEO or the leader in the organization?
Right. I'm still a big believer in globalization, and it's not a coincidence that I'm Dean of London Business School, which is a global business school, which is especially important today because when other institutions, especially American institutions, are forced to retreat from multilateralism, globalization, institutions who care about global classroom really are important for bringing students and faculty from all over the world to learn how to work and study together, because the future of business is still global, whether it's through multilateral deals or bilateral deals. And I fully agree with you that last year was very difficult for people who believe in globalization. But if you think about this, India is in a very different space because it's a big market already. But if you're in a small country, and an average country in the world has 6 million people, population, right? What can you do in innovative space when your market size is 6 million people? You cannot innovate. You cannot develop a big new breakthrough product or service. You cannot invest in R&D. So globalization is really critical for including people living in smaller countries into this innovative mindset. And in that sense, access to big markets is really important. And I would like to salute the Indian government again for signing those breakthrough trade deals in recent months. Because it also matters not just for India, but for smaller European countries. And I live in a reasonably mid-sized country, UK, but it's also, UK market is still too small if we want to have breakthrough innovation products and services.
Even though time is up, but I think we both, being from academic institutions, the talk may not be complete if I don't ask a question. In this AI education reset which you are facing these days, what kind of changes you believe we should bring in the academic institution like ours, particularly maybe with reference to UK and India?
Right. Sorry, we are out of time, so I'll be very brief. So the rise of AI is a huge disruptor to education system. And to answer this question very briefly, a lot will be automated and moved online because of the rise of AI. And so we need to focus on part of the process which is not automatable, which is human connection, sharing insights, networking, bringing people whose knowledge is not yet in the chat bot, which means research active faculty and top practitioners to the classroom to talk to students, sending students to outside of classrooms to organizations or to global trips so they can learn how India operates. And we send students every year to 25 locations in the world. In order to get a degree from London Business School, you have to go on one of those one-week trips and get a grade for this. And we actually send students every year to India as well. Whatever is not digitized and automatable will have to remain the product, the service that education institutions need to focus on. Experiential learning, interaction in the classrooms with top peers and with top practitioners and top academics. This is harder to automate. Thank you.
Thank you so much. An absolute
Thank you, Raj.
pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Raj.